Hi everyone, and welcome to Exploring the Build. If you've just found this place, then welcome. And if you're returning, I'm glad to have you back. I'm Alex, and this is my channel where we explore and theorycraft different character builds for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Today, we are continuing our Frosthaven series of character builds, where we're trying to take the character classes from the board game Frosthaven and recreate them in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. We're continuing with one of our starting 6 character classes. Starting character class that we're looking at today is the Blinkblade. The Blinkblade is probably one of, if not the most complex of the Frosthaven starting character classes. They aren't a Blinkblade in the traditional sense of someone who blinks and teleports around a battlefield, dishing out little attacks as they go. Think something like Tracer from Overwatch. They can teleport a little bit, and they do perform lots of little attacks, but they're more like a speedster like the Flash, rather than someone who teleports around. To explain the Blinkblade's main mechanics, I'm going to take a quick sec to explain one of the main rules of Frosthaven/Gloomhaven, and that is initiative. I've never really talked about it before, and this is kind of a key time to talk about it, since the Blinkblade's main mechanic revolves around it. So in the Haven series, initiative is done by picking the 2 cards you want to play on your turn. Then you'll choose one of those 2 cards to be your initiative card. The initiative is the big number in the middle of the card. The lower the number, the faster you go. The Blinkblade's main mechanic is built around initiative in that they can choose to go fast or slow, but not in the initiative sense. See, if they go slow, then they'll tend to have a slower initiative, but they'll only care about the orange or right side of their cards. Their cards have a lot of different actions on them and are split between this orange and green side. If you were looking at the card with the actions facing you, the orange would tend to be on the right hand side of the card, and the green would tend to be on the left hand side of the card. By going slow, not only are you only paying attention to the right hand side of your card and anything that is in an orange sort of text box, but you also are able to build up time counters. Blinkblade can then spend these time counters later on in order to go fast. Going fast means that you do the opposite of slow, so you are going to act a bit quicker, and you're going to care about the left-hand side of your card, and specifically anything in a green text box. Going fast tends to be a little bit more powerful, as you'll be more mobile and you'll be able to do more attacks usually. In D&D, it's easy enough to get a fast initiative, but getting features like this that make us want to choose to go fast or slow is another thing entirely. And lucky for us, there's actually a few mechanics that really reflect this choice perfectly. We aren't going to get any counters that we can spend to then choose to go fast or slow, but it's not the end of the world. And the last thing we're going to want to pick up from Frosthaven are conditions. The Blinkblade has access to a lot of conditions, things that would debuff or hurt their enemies or potentially buff their allies. And of course, whether you go fast or slow is going to impact the type of condition you actually apply to those enemies. But now before we start the actual build, let's look at their flavor text. The Quattral Blinkblade. Quattrals typically don't like being underestimated. They are smaller than the other peoples they encounter, yes, but that doesn't mean they are worth any less. If anything, they will go out of their way to show that they are worth more. Their scientific intuitions on the Eastern continent have developed a myriad of technological advancements. Bionics and prosthetics used to enhance their own capabilities. There are even vague records that long ago, the Quattral's scientific research led them to the north to hunt for its secrets, but these facilities have long since fallen to ruin. The fact of the matter is that the cold is not a forgiving climate for one so small. If a Blinkblade were to travel north, it may be because they have nowhere else to go, or because there is some quarry to be found. Blinkblades are assassins after all. Equipped with experimental temporal drives, they can alter the flow of time, moving faster than the eye can see and striking harder than a creature 10 times their size. Such actions can only be performed in short bursts, however, and there is always a cost to such great power. Starting at character creation with our lineage, we are a Quattral. Our Tinkerer and Demolitionist were both Quattrals, as well as our Music Note class. This means that we're a custom lineage for D&D since Quattrals don't exist. With custom lineage, we will choose to gain an extra skill instead of Dark Vision since it makes a bit more thematic sense, and the character is going to end up being very skilled by the end of the build, so it's nice to have an extra skill now. We also want to be size small, since quattrals are physically quite small. And finally, we're going to gain a free feat. For our free feat, we're going to pick up Squat Nimbleness. Squat Nimbleness has a prerequisite that you have to either be a dwarf or a small race. And since we're size small, we can take that. And by taking Squat Nimbleness, we get the following benefits. We can increase our strength or dexterity score by 1 to a maximum of 20, which is really nice. Our walking speed increases by 5 feet, and since Custom Lineage's speed is base 30 feet, this means we're actually at 35 now, which is really, really nice. We gain proficiency in acrobatics or athletics. It's our choice, and that's also really awesome. And then we also have advantage on any strength athletics checks or dexterity acrobatics checks you make to escape from being grappled. For our stats, we're going to want the following array of ability scores. We're going to want 8 strength, putting 0 points into it. We're going to want 14 dexterity after putting 5 points into that and then improving it by +1 with our Squat and Nimbleness feat. Then we're going to want 14 constitution, putting 7 points into that. We're going to want 16 intelligence, putting 7 points into that and putting the +2 we get from Custom Lineage into there. And then we want 4 points into both wisdom and charisma, giving us 12 in each of those ability scores. For our background, we are an assassin, so something that's a little bit more sinister, like criminal or spy, would work rather nicely. But if you'd rather go with a different background, and maybe consider your character more of like a gadgeteer who actually invented this temporal drive that they use, then that can work too. Starting the level breakdown of the build now. At level 1, we are Wizard 1. Wizard 1 is not the most ideal class to thematically capture the Blinkblade on its own, but it does have access to a feature that we're going to eventually pick up that will make us feel exactly like the Blinkblade. For now though, we gain Arcane Recovery, as well as a spell book with 6 first level spells and a couple of cantrips. At level 2, we are Wizard 2, and here we get to pick our subclass. And we are of course going to go with the subclass that perfectly captures the theme of controlling time, and that is the Graviturgist Wizard. Yes, not the Chronergist, like you might actually have thought we were going to go. We're going Graviturgist because we want the Adjust Density feature. This feature says that as an action, we can magically alter the weight of one object or creature that we can see within 30 feet of us. And then their weight is either halved or doubled for up to 1 minute until our concentration ends. While the weight of a creature is halved by this effect, their speed increases by 10 feet. They can jump twice as far as normal, and they have disadvantage on strength checks and strength saves. While their weight is doubled, their speed is reduced by 10 feet, but they have advantage on strength checks and strength saves. Adjust Density is the exact feature we want to mimic the ability to go fast or go slow as the Quattro Blinkblade. Obviously, it's not the most ideal. The drawbacks to it right away are the fact that it requires our concentration, and that means that we can't actually cast a concentration spell if we're using this, and the fact that it's an action to use that really bogs down our economy in combat. However, on the bright side, there's no resource limit on this. We can just do this almost at will every day, as many times during the day that we want. As well, there's no save when we use it on a creature, so if we did use it on a different creature, then that's just it. The effects just take place. We're going to use this mainly on ourselves, and we're only going to use it until we get a better feature that could mimic going fast, such as a spell like Blur or Haste. For us though, this is a really reliable way to have that mimicking of going fast or slow, and it's really up to you how you want to use it. Level 3, we're immediately jumping ship from Wizard and we're going over to Artificer. Like I said, Wizard was not the most ideal class for the Blinkblade, but Graviturgist and their Adjust Density feature is ideal. It is a built-in feature that lets us feel like we're either choosing to go fast or slow when we're acting in combat. I already talked about that, but what I haven't talked about is Artificer. Artificer is going to give us more of our actual Gish/combat-oriented abilities. Even though we're technically supposed to be an assassin, we're an assassin that has access to some really cool gadgetry. And there's no better way to get that gadgetry than to be an Artificer and build it ourselves. With Artificer 1, we gain extra spell casting as well as magical tinkering, neither of which is too important for us. It does get us a few extra spells and cantrips in the long run. Plus, since Artificer is a half caster that's a bit special and gets to round up when determining our total caster level, that means that we're now effectively a 3rd level caster and have 2nd level spell slots, even though we don't have any 2nd level spells. At level 4, we are now Artificer 2, and that means that we get Infuse Item. We learn 4 infusions, and we can infuse 2 items. I would infuse probably whatever weapon you're using just to make it magical and gain a little bit of a damage bonus, as well as infuse whatever armor you're wearing. If you were casting mage armor, maybe don't worry about that. You can always pick up some other items that work really well in a utility aspect and pick those as well. In all honesty, the infusions aren't too key for the character, so I'm not going to worry about them right now, but later down the line we might come back and look at what could be really useful for us. Starting at level 5, we are Artificer 3, and here we get to choose our Artificer subclass. The Artificer subclass that we're going to take is Armorer. Armorer makes perfect sense for us, both thematically and mechanically. It's pretty thematic that we care about our armor, and with the Arcane Armor feature that we pick up as the Armorer Artificer subclass, that becomes very obvious, because the Arcane Armor feature is just amazing to have. We also gain the Armor Model feature, which is another way to reflect us choosing to go fast or slow. We have access to be able to turn our Arcane Armor into a specific model after a short or long rest, which is a lot of versatility throughout the day, to be honest. When we finish one of those rests, we can choose to make our armor suit a Guardian suit or an Infiltrator suit. The Guardian suit has the Thunder Gauntlets as their weapon, and if we hit a creature with the Thunder Gauntlets, we'll do a d8 thunder damage, and they have disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than us until the start of our next turn. We also have Defensive Field, which as a bonus action we can use to gain temporary hit points equal to our level in this class. We can use that bonus action a number of times equal to our proficiency bonus, and regain any unexpended uses on a long rest. The Infiltrator, on the other hand, has a lightning launcher for their weapon, which is a really nice ranged attack that deals a d6 lightning damage, plus once on each of our turns it can deal an extra d6 just casually. It also has an increase to our walking speed, and it removes disadvantage on stealth checks if our armor had disadvantage on stealth checks. So already I hope you can see how the Guardian model is a little bit more like us choosing to go slow, and the Infiltrator model is a little bit more like us choosing to go fast. There's nothing saying that you can't mix and match the Adjust Density feature or any other spells that reflect us going fast or slow, and mix that with the opposite sort of style of armor. But I really like how nicely that fits with our theme of being able to pick after any rest of if we want our armor suit to feel like we're supposed to go slow with the Guardian and be a front-line immovable object to tank for our party, or if we'd rather go fast and be more of a ranged skirmisher with the Infiltrator suit. Last couple things I will say about this is that with our armor model for the Guardian and their Thunder Gauntlets, we'd probably want to flavor these to be the Blinkblade's actual bladed weapons, and instead of us dishing out thunder to distract our opponents, it's us messing with time around them with maybe like a little vibrating dagger or something. Level 6, we're going to go up to Artificer 4, and here we gain our first ability score improvement / feat. We're now just going to improve our intelligence by +2 to a total of 18, since intelligence is the main ability score that we care about now. At level 7, we're an Artificer 5, and here we gain another Artificer Specialist feature, which in the Armorer's case is extra attack. We can now attack twice with our Thunder Gauntlets / temporal daggers, I suppose you could call them, or our Lightning Launcher. Also, as a 5th level Artificer, we now have access to 2nd level spells, so pick your favorites of these. I will note that Blur is a very awesome choice for our Blinkblade, since that could be a better way to make it feel like we're going fast, rather than just using the Adjust Density feature. But anything else is totally up to you. We also have up to 3rd level spell slots, since half of our Artificer rounded up is 3, plus 2 levels in Wizard makes us a total of a 5th level caster. Going up to level 8, we're now a Wizard 3, and here we unlock 2nd level Wizard spells. Now I will say pick your favorites for these spells, since there's really lots that we can pick from, but there's a small list of spells that we could pick up in order to reflect some Frosthaven status effects. Rhymes Binding Ice or Web are good ways to get the Immobilize status effect. Tasha's Mind Whip is a good way to get a Disarm or Stun-like status effect, because that removes an action from an enemy if the enemy fails their save. And finally, one first level spell, which is Tasha's Caustic Brew, is a great way to pick up the wound status effect, since it deals damage over time at the start of any enemy's turn that failed their save that we cast it on. So just a few good options to pick to reflect some Frosthaven status effects, but you can reasonably pick any spells that you'd like. At level 9, we are a Wizard 4 now, and we gain our next ability score improvement / feat. And we're going to hold off on increasing our intelligence to 20 to cap it off, just for a little bit. And instead, we're going to take the feat Mobile. Mobile just boosts our speed by 10 feet, which is already really good, since we want our Blinkblade to be really mobile, no matter if we're going fast or slow. If we use the dash action on our turn, difficult terrain won't cost us any extra movement. And finally, when we make a melee attack against a creature, we don't provoke opportunity attacks from that creature for the rest of the turn, whether we hit or not. What we could do is, if we're in our Guardian form, hit one enemy with our temporal daggers, giving that enemy disadvantage on all attacks against other creatures besides us, then move away from them with Mobile and hit another enemy, giving that other enemy disadvantage as well. Just an all-around good feat to have. 10, we are Wizard 5, and now our mobile feat has gotten even greater value because we can pick up the spell Haste. Haste is probably by far our go-to way to feel like we are going fast, because it is the fast spell. And then you can pick up any other wizard spell that you'd like. At level 11, we are Wizard 6, and we gain a couple of things here. First of all, back to our Graviturgis wizard, we gain the Gravity Well feature. This says that whenever we cast a spell on a creature, we can move that target 5 feet to an unoccupied space of our choice if the target is willing to move. Now, I hope that those are the cases and that I'm not reading this wrong in that it has to be an attack or a failed save, because what we'd like to do is use this on ourselves whenever we cast Haste to get a free extra 5 feet of movement. That is really nice, since it's just a little bit of a bounce, even more battlefield mobility, and technically we could cast this on ourselves when we're already next to an enemy to get away from them without provoking opportunity attacks and without even having to attack ourselves to trigger Mobile. At level 12, we are now done with wizard levels and we are just sticking with artificer levels. So, at level 6 artificer, we gain tool expertise, and that is exactly like what it sounds like. We gain the expertise feature for tools. Whenever we use a tool, we double our proficiency bonus. At level 13, we are now level 7, and here we gain Flash of Genius. Flash of Genius is an amazing feature that the artificer gets. It says when us or a creature within 30 feet of us makes an ability check or saving throw, we can use our reaction to add our intelligence modifier to the roll. Then we can use this feature a number of times equal to our intelligence modifier. Right now, that's 4 times to give a +4 bonus on any ability check or saving throw. 14, we're Artificer 8, and we gain another ability score improvement / feat. And here we are, of course, going to improve our intelligence by +2 once again in order to cap it at 20. Flash of Genius, like I just talked about, is now amazing, and our attacks scale even better as well. At level 15, we are now Artificer 9, meaning we get our next Armorer feature, which is Armor Modifications. Our armor now counts as separate pieces for the purposes of putting our infused items into it. There's the chest piece itself, the boots, the helmet, and the special weapon, whether that's your gauntlets or your lightning launcher. Also, the maximum number of items that we can infuse increases by 2, but those 2 have to be spent on our armor, which honestly, all of our infusions are probably going to be spent there at this point. We're more of a selfish artificer rather than a generous one. Speaking of infusions now, it's time to look at some good options for us to pick up. First of all, Enhanced Defense and Enhanced Weapon are great options since they're about to increase to a +2 bonus when we hit level 10, but you could pick anything else that you wanted if you would like. Using the Mind Sharpener on ourselves would also be really awesome, because that's just 4 charges of basically legendary resistance. With Mind Sharpener, whenever the wearer fails a Constitution saving throw to maintain concentration on a spell, they use their reaction and spend 1 of the item's charges to just succeed instead. Then, the item regains 1d4 expended charges at dawn. We could have had this for our entire time as an artificer, and it probably would have been good to mention a lot earlier on my part. But for what it's worth, picking it up either earlier or now is just as good, as it's going to help us maintain concentration on things like haste, which we definitely want to concentrate on. The final infusion I'll mention, because any of the other ones are also pretty good, and replicate magic item could also be done really well if you had some interesting magic items in mind. But for us, the last thing to talk about is Boots of the Winding Path. With Boots of the Winding Path, they say that while wearing the boots, we can teleport as a bonus action 15 feet to an unoccupied space that we can see. We must have occupied the space at some point during our turn, though. This is definitely a perfect way to make us feel like a Blinkblade. Because we have such a high movement speed, especially with haste, we probably don't need the boots, but it's just extra 15 feet of mobility. But it's just an extra 15 feet of mobility where we can run around the battlefield, hit anything we want to hit, and as long as we're within 15 feet of a space that we occupied at some point during our turn, which honestly is probably really easy to do, we can then just teleport back to that space. It's not necessarily the most mechanically powerful infusion, but it is certainly the one that's most thematic for us. At level 16, we are Artificer 10, and here we gain Magic Item Adept. Magic Item Adept is subtly one of the most powerful features probably in D&D, and it's because it says that we can attune to up to 4 magic items at once. Theory crafting, this is probably just other items that we've built through our own infusions that would require attunement, but realistically, this could be any 4 magic items that you find in a D&D campaign. And if your DM is really generous with throwing out magical items, especially powerful ones, this can get absurdly powerful. For us, it just means that we're more likely to have actual attuned items on our armor, which is still pretty good. At level 17, we are Artificer 11, and here we gain Spell Storing Item. This is another subtly powerful feature that we get. It says that whenever we finish a long rest, we can touch one simple or martial weapon, or just one item that we could use as a spell casting focus, which technically could be our armor if we wanted to. And then we can store a spell in it. That spell can be a 1st or 2nd level spell from the Artificer spell list that requires 1 action to cast. Then while holding that object, a creature can take an action to produce the spell's effect from it. The spell goes off as normal, it uses our ability score modifier. The thing that's awesome is that spell stays in the object until it's been used a number of times equal to twice our intelligence modifier. And for us, that's 10 times. Now, admittedly, this maybe isn't as powerful as it could be, so we have to use a spell that requires an action to cast and put it into that armor, instead of just any spell from the Artificer spell list. But having 10 free castings of something like Cure Wounds for just extra healing is really, really good. It could even be something like Grease, or Jump, or Identify, or it could be something like Longstrider, which is a spell that doesn't require concentration and lasts for a full hour. That means that in each day, if we put Longstrider into the spell, we have 10 free hours of Longstrider to cast on ourselves or any of our party members. We could boost every party member's speed by 10 feet for probably the entire day, or at least for a couple hours of the day. Or we could just play as though we had our speed increased by 10 feet for the entire day's duration. And then at the end of the day, when we finish our long rest, we just do it again for tomorrow. Pick whatever spell you want and put it into a spell storing item, and just have a blast casting that spell a whole bunch of times. At level 18, we are Artificer 12, and here we gain another ability score improvement / feat. And honestly, you can pick whatever you want for this level. We have maxed out our intelligence at 20, which is basically what we want for this build, and we don't really need any other feats or anything else. At level 19, we are Artificer 13, and here we really don't gain anything. As an Artificer 13, though, we do have up to 4th level spells, and half our Artificer level puts us at a 7th level caster. That, combined with the 6 levels of Wizard, means that we are a 13th level multi-classed caster character overall. Finally, at level 20, we are Artificer 14, and here we gain the ability Magic Item Savant. Magic Item Savant says that we can attune to up to 5 magic items at once, and we ignore all requirements for attuning or using magic items. This is just a great improvement to our Magic Item Adept feature, and has a wide variety of power depending on how generous your DM is. It's time to summarize our build. Overall, we are pretty much the Blinkblade, at least in my mind. We got our features to replicate the mechanic of going fast or slow really quickly. The adjust density feature from Graviturgist is admittedly not the greatest feature, but it is the best on-demand feature for replicating going fast or going slow, because we can choose to be light, aka go fast, or be heavy, aka go slow. Also then just rolled right into Artificer, which synergizes really well with Wizard, and scaled relatively okay for a multi-class character with the rest of our abilities. Even though we didn't have lots of little attacks right away, we do eventually get there once we're able to pick up Haste as a spell and have the mobile feat as well. And we're actually relatively quick to capture the concept of the Blinkblade, at least compared to some of the other Frosthaven characters that we've done. The main regrets, I would say, are the fact that we're not actually like an assassin in terms of a D&D assassin. We aren't a rogue, we don't have sneak attack, but technically you could rework some of the later levels of the build to fit in those assassin levels if you wanted to. It wouldn't synergize super well, but it would be thematic. And honestly, we have our main mechanic and most of the features. We didn't have to worry about elements, and for the conditions, well, we have a lot of spells, so presumably we'd be able to pick spells that can mimic our Gloomhaven conditions. Plus, with the sheer amount of infusions / attuned items that we could have, if we didn't pick up enough features to really reflect the theme of the Blinkblade from our class features, then we have items to back that up and really end up making us feel like the Blinkblade overall. Let me know what you thought of the build, or what you would add or change to get closer to the concept of the Frosthaven Blinkblade, or even what you would change to get closer to just the idea of a Blinkblade in general. Thank you so much for coming on the journey with me, and I hope to see you in the next one.